So this is the national test from 2006, the old B1 paper that we now call the B paper. And the first question was, how many millions is that? If this was number paired up on your calculator, how many millions? To understand how many millions, do it in sections of 3. Here are hundreds. Here are our 100,000s. So how many millions are there? There are 23 million. You could also have answered 23.14267, because that would have also been correct. So that had two possible answers, 23 million or 23.14. Next one, the easiest way I think is just set it up as a minus. Do it. We can't take 5 away from 0, so we have to borrow 1. So we're taking 10 minus 5 is 5. 2 minus 2 is 0. And 12 minus 7 is 5. 5.07. But don't stop there, because you know it's easy to make a silly mistake here. So just do a little check. Add 7.25 and 5.05 together. If you've done it correctly, you'll get the answer you started with. 10, 3, 7 and 5, 12. 12.3. Yes, it's easy to make a silly mistake on these ones. So do your double check and you know that you haven't made a silly mistake. Then it was, what number is this on the number line? Well, we've got 31 to 32 and we can see we've got 5 gaps in between, telling us that each of these ones must be 0.2, then 0.4, 31.2, 31.4, 31.6, 31.8. So what's this number here that we're trying to find? 31.3, halfway between 0.2 and 0.4. So on the number line, it was 31.3. Then they're asking you to add 4 plus 6 times 3 using the point that you use in Sweden. We know that in England we usually use the X sign there, the time sign. You'd know that according to the rules of BIDMAS, what do we do first? We do brackets, then we do powers of, so either squared or square roots. Then we do multiply and divide, and we finish off add and subtract. So we look here and say, what do we have? We don't have any brackets, we don't have any powers of, but we do have a times, so we have to do that first. So this one has to be done first. So you get equals 4 plus 18. 6 3s are 18, giving you the final answer, 22. Remember BIDMAS, brackets, indices, divide, multiply, addition, subtraction. Okay? Here we have calculate 30 divided by 0.6. We know we're never allowed to calculate with a decimal point in the denominator, on the bottom of the divide line. So we have to multiply top and bottom by 10, giving us 300 divided by 6. So 30 divided by 0.6 is exactly the same as 300 divided by 6. 6 is going to 35 times. 0 left over, 6 is into 0, 0, giving us the answer 50. Again, if we want to do a little check, is 50 times 6 300? Yes, it is. So don't lose points on these easy questions that you all know the answer to. Do the little check that makes sure you haven't made a silly mistake. X plus 6 equals minus 2. We want the plus 6 to move to the other side. We know that when a plus 6 moves to the other side, it becomes a minus 6. So we'll get x equals minus 2 minus 6. Minus 2 minus 6 is minus 8. So we know that x equals minus 8. Another way of thinking of this one is just by saying, okay, I want to get rid of this 6. Let's take away 6 from both sides of the equation. 6 minus 6 is 0. Minus 2 minus 6, not the power of, by the way. Minus 2 minus 6 is minus 8. So you can do it that way as well and you'll get exactly the same answer. Then it asks us to do half of 1.5. Well, here we've got it as a mixed fraction. The easiest thing to do with that is convert 1.5 to a top-heavy fraction. That's the same as 3 over 2. So what we want to do is take a half of 3 over 2. So we're just multiplying two fractions together, which is super easy now, because 3 times 1 is 3, and 2 times 2 is 4. So it gives us the answer 3/4, which we also know is 0.75, and you can answer either of those answers to get the point. Next question. James bikes to school and he has 4 kilometers from, I don't remember the name, so I'm ad-libbing it, okay? So he's going to school and it's 4 kilometers to school, and he bicycles at a speed of 16 kilometers per hour. So everybody remembers distance, velocity, time. Velocity is distance over time. We know the distance, we know the velocity, we're trying to get the time. So time is the same as distance over velocity. And this isn't the easiest way, this is the mathematical way. Sorry, I can't resist it. Distance is 4 kilometers. The velocity is 16 kilometers per hour. So we'd get kilometers divided by kilometers per hour. The kilometers will cancel and we'll get under the double divide, we'll get 1/4 of an hour, which we know is 15 minutes. Because the question said answer in minutes, give the time in minutes. So you can't just say 1/4 of an hour or 0.25 an hour, you have to say 15 minutes to get the point for that one. You could have also just used your common sense. Okay, 4 kilometers is 1/4 of the total 16 kilometers. He'd do 16 kilometers in 1 hour. He's done 1/4 of that distance, so it's going to take him 1/4 of an hour. That one's a bit simpler, but I always like using the speed time diagrams because they're so fun. Puppy eats 0.4 kilometers. The puppy eats 0.4 kilos of food every day in his bowl, okay? And we bought him an enormous sack of 20 kilos of food. So if we know that we need to divide, which one should we divide? If we actually put the units on here, it makes it really easy. Because if we divide the weight in the sack by the amount he eats each day, and we look at the units here, the weight in the sack is kilograms. The amount he eats each day is kilograms per day. What happens with kilograms? They cancel. We get 1/1 over day, which means we get an answer in days directly. So if we take 20 and divide it by 0.4, we'll get the amount of days that the food will last. We can't divide when we have a decimal on the bottom, so we have to multiply top and bottom by 10. So we get 200 divided by 4. 4 is going to 25 times 0, 50 days. So we get quite simply that the sack of food will last 50 days for the puppy. Question 10, we have a square. And they've told us that the perimeter of the square is 28 centimeters. So that we know the length L is going to be 28 divided by 4, because it's a square. They're all going to have the same size, which gives us 7 centimeters. So we now know what the length of one side is. The area of our square is length squared, so it's going to be 7 centimeters times 7 centimeters, which is 49 centimeters squared. Units here very important. Okay, so we get a square that has an area of 49 centimeters squared. From the perimeter, work out the length. When you know the length, use that to work out the area. Then we have that one of the angles in an isosceles triangle is 130 degrees. Okay, so we know that this larger angle here is 130 degrees. It's an isosceles triangle, which means that this length equals this length, which means that this angle here, x, equals this angle here. Because if the length is the same, then the angles at the base are the same length. So what do we know then? We know that 2 lots of x plus 130 degrees equals the sum of all triangles, which is 180. So we know then that x is 180 minus 130, all divided by 2. So x ends up being 25 degrees. Am I ready? No, I'll probably do a quick check. Does 25 plus 25, that's 50, add that to 130, do I get 180? Yes, I do. So it's always good to do the quick check there. So you should have angle 1 is 25 degrees, angle 2 is 25 degrees as well. Next one, we have a map in the scale of 1 to 50,000. So 1 centimetre on my paper is equivalent to 50,000 centimetres in reality. It doesn't really help me very much when it's in centimetres. So let's change it to metres. That tells me that 1 centimetre is equivalent to 500 metres. I divide by 100, I move the decimal point 2 places back. Now I know that 1 centimetre is equivalent to 500 metres. Let's change it to kilometres. That gives us that 1 centimetre is equivalent to, move it back 3 places for kilometres, half a kilometre. Okay, if I now know that 1 centimetre is half a kilometre, how big is 6 centimetres? Well, that's just times 6. So we'd times this one by 6 as well. We'd get 3 kilometres. So what 6 centimetres on our map is equivalent to 3 kilometres in reality. And I think that's the easiest way to do those ones. Then we have a statistics one, because they're testing many different skills, and remember it, trying to check that you know it. Pelle has already won a lottery, so now he gets to decide what prize he's going to get. And he's got to spin this wheel, and if he lands anywhere here, he'll get a t-shirt. If he lands in the 90-degree section here, because there's a perpendicular angle, he will get a tracksuit. 45-degree angle here is a CD player, and the other remaining part is a mobile phone. So what's the chance of him getting a mobile phone? Well, we actually have to change this really into fractions. So we know that there's a half a chance of him getting a t-shirt. And there's 90 degrees here. 90 out of 360 is the same as 1/4 of a chance of him getting a tracksuit. 45 degrees out of 360, that's half of 90 degrees, so it's 1/8 of a chance of him getting a CD player. So the chance of him getting the mobile is 1 minus a half plus a quarter plus 1/8. Most of you could probably see already that if this one is 1/8 and 45 degrees, this one also has to be 45 degrees and also has to be 1/8. So you can maybe see it, but if you want to check it with your maths, you could actually add all of these. You're not allowed to add unless you have the same denominator on the bottom, so make all of these into 8s by multiplying by 2. This is the same as 1 minus 4/8 plus 2/8 plus 1/8. 4 plus 2 plus 1, 4, 6, 7. So it's 1 minus 7/8, which is the same as 8/8 minus 7/8, which of course is 1/8. So that's what you were expecting when you just looked at this sketch. Here's the maths of remembering how to add and subtract with fractions. Okay? The chance of the mobile phone will be 1 minus the chance of the t-shirt plus the chance of the tracksuit plus the chance of the CD player in brackets. Yeah? Then the next question was, if you have this number 7.3 times 10 to the power of n equals 7,300. what will the actual value of n be? Well, that's easy. We see how many places we moved the decimal point to get 7.3. 1, 2, 3. So it's going to equal 7.3 times 10 to the power 3 would equal 7,300. Therefore, n equals 3. Then we have a little table where they give us some values of A and some values of B. And if A is 2, B is 10. If A is 3, B was 15. No, the other way around, sorry. 15 and 3. 25.
The first one is still wrong.
Oh, it's the other way around.
Yes.
It is, everything's the other way around. 10, 2, 25, 5, and 50, 10. So we can see the relationship quite easy here. If we divide by 5, we divide A by 5, we get what B is. So we can write it like that. We can say A divided by 5 equals B. Or we can say that A is 5 lots of B. Or we can say that A divided by 5, 1 divided by 5 is the same as 0.2. So we could say that 0.2 of A equals B. So all of those things are acceptable as answers. It's just the relationship between A and B. Now the Smith family have taken a loan, and it's at an interest rate of 3%. And they had to pay back in one whole year, they paid back 18,000 kroners to the bank. So their amount of interest, the amount of money that they paid, in the amount of interest we call it. So what do we work out what their actual loan was? Well, we can express this in terms of algebra. We can say that 0.03 of x, the amount that they borrowed, will cost them 18,000 kroners in that year. So the amount of interest, 0.03 times x equals 18,000. And you then get x by 18,000 divided by 0.03, which is the same as 18 million. Now move the decimal point. 1, 2, 3, 2. Yeah. So divided by 3. 3's go into 18 6 times. And what have you get left over? 600,000 kroners. That's for those of you like me that love algebra, but there's an easier way of doing that if you don't love algebra. I do accept that maybe not everybody loves it just quite as much as me. What you can do is you know that 3% is equivalent to 18,000. Go from 3% down to 1% by dividing this side by 3. This gives me now what 1% is. Therefore, I have to divide this side by 3. So 1% is equivalent then to 6,000 kroners. If I know that 1% is 6,000 kroners, how much is 100% times 100? It gives me that 100% is equivalent to 600,000 kroners. You get the same answer whichever way you do, but choose that way that you prefer. Then we have a cube with a side of 2a. What will be the volume? Well, we know that the volume is the length of the side times the length of the side times the height. Or 2a all cubed. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. A times A times A is A cubed. Same here. It's the same as 2 times 2 times 2 times A cubed. Doesn't matter which way you do it. So you get a volume of 8A cubed. Right, then we've got 3 quick more questions. It says, what's the area, the fraction of the area shaded? And you've got a 4 by 4 square here. 1, 2, 3. Mine's not drawn very well. Have a good imagination. And then you've got a rectangle, a square in here, like this, that's shaded. So first we need to work out the shaded part, and that's going to be 4 by 4 minus the area of the 4 rectangles. So the 4 rectangles are going to have an area of 3 times 1 divided by 2. That's the area of one of these white triangles. One of these white triangles will have the area of 3 times 1 divided by 2, and we have 4 of them. So you get 16 minus 6. So the area of the inner shaded square is 10, but it wants the fraction. So you get 10 parts out of the whole square, which is 16, is shaded, which is the same as 5/8. So 10/16 or 5/8 is the amount shaded of this figure. 10/16 or 5/8. Then we have, we'll take it later, we have another question which says simplify as much as possible. A plus 2a plus 3a all divided by a. If we add 3a, 2a and a, we'd get 3a plus 2a plus a, which is 6a. 6a all divided by a, the a would cancel, so we get the answer 6 to that one. The next one, solve the equation, and this is the last one, question 20. X minus 0.2 divided by 0.1 equals 1. Multiply both sides by 10 and you'll get rid of the 0.1 down here on the bottom. So, times 10 to both sides. Dividing by 0.1 is the same as multiplying by 10. So we multiply both sides by 0.1, 0.1, multiply both sides by 0.1, and we get 0.1 divided by 0.1 here, cancelling. So we get that x minus 0.2 equals 1 times 0.1, which is 0.1. Now we add 0.2 to both sides to move the 0.2 to the other side. So we get the x, so add 0.2 here, plus add 0.2 here. We get that this one goes to 0, we get that x equals 0.1 plus 0.2, which equals 0.3. So x equals 0.3 is the final answer there.